So for those of you who are just joining in, we're going to go through the warm-ups. And it's typical. The information is valuable. So continue to listen and continue to try to do what we're doing, because as a motor skill disorder, or actually to help prevent the progression of some of the things that you have lost the ability to doing, is really to understand how to overcome and achieve some of the coordination or balance that you might be losing. And really the important thing is to keep as relaxed as possible and avoid the conflict in the movement, which is tension. And how do we avoid the conflict and tension is to continually learn to move areas that typically you're not accustomed to moving, especially the torso that could get very rigid. And the bigger muscles and the joints and shoulder area, you want to learn to relax those and move your arms and your upper body. So we have a shoulder width position. We start off with our heels together like this, and we go up like this. Then we turn. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. Okay, next we have this position. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So let the body kind of shift like this, and you feel a little stretch. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So even though that appears to be a very simple thing, we're just bending to the side. Well, this hand is here, and we go to the side, and we have this position. So don't think it's this. That's your arm doing that. You want to hold this position, create a continuity of a line here, so that when we bend to the side like this, we're really bending. The hip, the waist area here is kind of shifting over. So you see you form this curvature in the body. So that's body form. And that curvature doesn't happen because we're stiff. It happens because this opens up and this closes up. And when you do that, it moves your ribs, and it moves. Actually, we made up a bunch of ribs, and those joints will actually move. But where the rigidity comes in is when those don't move and they're just kind of like this. So if you're like this, and these are your ribs, there's not going to be any movement unless you have this give and take. So they kind of expand and contract as subtle as, and they don't move a lot. That's why we have so many ribs, because if each one of them moves a little bit, it's going to create, that arc or that arch. So that actually helps you get your body shifting like that, and that will help avoid some of the rigidity your body might be faced with. But it's also learning to move, okay? Lift up, and the same thing applies here. When we move down, we stretch. So we kind of release here, and we go this way and this way, and then lift up, and the spine goes the opposite direction, because your vertebrae going doing this and they kind of move like that, and then they open back up, and they go down, and they open up. So that's your backbone. It's really the vertebrae that allow you to go forward and then backwards, and it kind of shifts. Even though we know that that's what the spine is doing, does the body do it when you want it to do it? So that's why we have to consciously try the best we can do that, and then lift up, and then take a deep breath in and out. So inhalation, the palms are facing up. Exhalation, the palms are facing down. So just the fact that we have to turn our hands and turn our hands and palms up and down, we're already maneuvering and manipulating our skeleton to create those actions. Now, we're not manipulating the skeleton with a lot of strength and force. We're creating an action. So everything that we're doing is creating motion, action. And every movement that we create is a motor skill. A motor skill is something that's driven by the neurons in the brain and the information we feed it to say, okay, this is what has to happen to create that movement. In the beginning, you might not be able to do some of these movements because it's not programmed into your system, or you haven't been paying attention that this is what has to happen. And that's just, a natural course. The spine, if it's very stiff because you don't move it, then let's learn to move the spine so it rounds out and lifts up and rounds out and lifts up. Now your back is very much involved in keeping you in a vertical position. It's very involved if you are carrying a load out in front of your arms, like a package or a box, whatever it is. It responds to compensate for the force that's acting on your body. So what does that mean? If I picked up a bucket or a barrel between my hands and I lifted it off the ground, if my back didn't compensate for the weight that's in the front of my body, I wouldn't be able to either pick it up or I would tip over because there isn't a balance. There isn't a counterbalancing. So counterbalancing in the body happens when the body responds to a position and then finds that position of balance. So typically, shifting around and moving allow us to keep in balance to keep us in a vertical position. So we compensate a lot with that. And if we're walking and we're leaning forward, which is actually not a good position to be in when you're walking, you compensate for that by your back pulling back or creating a resistance, which is really counterbalancing the forward position. So that's something that we can understand why we should not tip forward when we typically lean when we walk, but we do learn to tip forward when we stretch. So the counterbalancing here is that your butt has to go out and your torso goes forward. That counteraction is really keeping your body in check and in balance. Okay. So by folding at the hip and relaxing, counterbalancing, we're in a balanced position and it allows us to stretch. If you counterbalance with tension and I just go like this, then all we're doing is tensing and we're not really stretching. So that kind of gives you the idea why stretching and counterbalancing, they do the same thing, but one works against the other. So if you're counterbalancing with tension, you're really not learning to relax. Okay, deep breathing, hands up, pull in, inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. So, the body itself has an amazing ability and capacity to make these minute adjustments. That's part of our proprioception. It's part of our understanding of what the body has to do to stay in a vertical, erect position. And this is something that humans have as a response because our body has evolved into this vertical standing position to be mobile. Okay, next, we're going to put our hands on the waist, and we're going to make a circle. And relax from the neck to the ankle. Relax the body so we can learn to shift. So this is more of the same. Everything we're doing is learning to shift and move, and develop a consciousness and an understanding of how to develop movement, motion. And ultimately, all these, reverse, these motions turn into functionality. The only reason and the only purpose of moving is to do things, to be functional. On the other side of it, the passive movement or the movements that are involuntary does the same thing. There's a reason for there to be movement. Whether you're breathing, reaching, walking, even talking, there's a reason to move those muscles. You're moving your larynx, you're moving the vocal cords, changing all of the type of things that allow you to create a sound. It's across the board what it does. Your eye muscles control your eyes. It controls everything else that is involved in, your vision. So when we do that, when we watch and we look, the information we take in through the eyes actually gets stored and then it gets translated. So when we're moving our body like this, you see, this position is part of that position. This position, although we're not looking down or tipping, is just the same type of compensation that's happening in the small of your back, your hips, and actually this core part of your body is doing a minute shift too. So each time we move, we create a pattern. Okay, now we're going to cross the forearms, reach down, support ourselves in the knees, and then we're going to make some circular movements here. Circular movements. We're really manipulating the joints. And moving the joints actually is good for the joints. They're designed to move. If you hold the joint over a period of time in a rigid position, it doesn't feel good after a while because it ends up being stuck. Okay, now we're going to stand up, hands on the waist, and then we're going to turn the head. 2, 3. So we have to use the neck muscles to turn our head. Okay, next we're going to go back and forth. We're not going to do too many of these. Just go through the motions. But you can feel, even though it's gentle, you feel a little bit of stretch. And if you don't feel that stretch, it's because the muscle is not relaxing. It's not releasing. Okay, now we're going to tip to the side. One side releases, the other side pulls. It's still that balance in motion. And don't force it, just and then we're going to go to center position and create a circular movement. We'll just do it a few times. And then we'll go the other way. And center. Okay, now hands up like this. We're going to pull in, elbows out, up on your toes, and exhale. Now breathe through your nose. Inhale. Exhale. Tongue touches the roof of your mouth. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the nose. Okay, let's do it one more time. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the nose. Okay, now we're going to spread the feet. Turn the shoulders. 1, 2. So this is twisting, turning the lower back. Relax the shoulders and arms. Let them hang and swing around the body. Don't hold them out like this. See how rigid and stiff that appears to be? Let it go. Let the upper body twist and go with the motion in a direction. And center. Okay, shake it out. Bring your feet together. Okay, we're going to work the geometry of the footwork. So we're here. 1, 2. That's a square position. Okay, now we're going to go like this. Pivot on the ball of the foot. 1 on each side. And then we're going to do it again. So 1, the heel turns in. The heel turns in. The heel turns out. And the heel turns out. So this is pivoting on the ball of the feet, 1 foot at a time. And you kind of play around with the movement, see where or how much you shift in order to get the weight off of the pivoting foot. So in other words, the foot that's pivoting should be free to move. So when you pivot and open, it's really happening in the hips, because your hips, it's kind of a ball and socket joint, so it allows it to rotate. So if you, like I said, if you don't move your joints, the tendency could be that it freezes up, or maybe it's not getting lubrication, or maybe it's just the joint itself is wearing from not doing anything. It's just freezing up. So you want to actually move your joints, and we do a lot of this pivoting in Tai Chi, because that's how we take, how it takes us in a direction. We take advantage of this situation where we can pivot and change to a direction. Whichever way your toe points is the direction you're going to be hitting. So if I'm here, I'm going to turn and go into the corners. Okay, so that's something that's really important, I think, if you have trouble turning a corner and not being able to respond from there. So you turn the corner and you take that step. Okay, you take a step again. Okay, take that step, pivot and turn that corner, and then take that step. Take the step and take the step. Pivot is another way. So this is called teeing out. If the feet are like this and you pivot, or you pivot, that takes us into that direction, and then you take that step. If I tee out like this, pivot, and I take that step. So by practicing something like that, you begin to understand, this is what I need to do to go in a direction. So whichever direction I point my toe, then shift the weight, I move the opposite foot. So it becomes something that you're aware of, and that you're knowing to steer yourself in a direction. Now, if I end up over here and I practice this is filling and emptying. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what am I filling it with? I'm filling it with weight. I turn, I pivot 1, and sit back 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So these exercises is really part of the benefit of doing footwork. These exercises teach us how to pivot and turn. You learn about the angular position. So this is your square foot position. This is your triangle position. This is your parallel foot position. And this is your sort of the sitting stance, the empty stance, where the front foot is like this. Now, when you do this, the knees alternate. What do you mean by that? One bends and straightens, bends and straightens. So between the relationship between the two knees, you have an alternating effect, and then eventually your body or your legs become much more supple, much more responsive, because you learn to sink and relax. So what's important in leg work, it's not a physical thing. We're just bending and bending. We're building a relationship of shifting of weight and shifting of weight. This like a to and fro. I'm going forward and then back and then forward again. So the knees, this rear leg, when it extends, causes the front leg to fold. Okay, if I'm here and I want to go to the front leg and I go like this, that kind of becomes physical because it hasn't built that relationship. So what happens is this leg has to release. Then when this pushes, that has to release. So there's a give and take between the two actions. And that's something that is very important to understand so that you don't end up in a position where it becomes too physical. So it becomes a yielding and a give and take, like I'm mentioning. It's a relationship that allows there to be transition. If you don't transition between the two sides, then it becomes isolated, and your balance and stability is going to be compromised. So what you want to do is when you shift, everything's working together. Everything is working together. So the body, has this system that will kind of detect where it's going and what it feels like and what that relationship is. And as we do that, it's going to heighten your awareness, and it's going to also teach you how you kind of develop what we just talked about, is controlling your center and controlling your center of mass. So when we shift like this, that's what actually is happening. Shift, and let your foot come across by itself. If you can pick it up just enough to clear, let it come across and meet the other foot. Okay, so it is your center. Let's move forward and sit back, forward and sit back. Okay, so what's the difference between going forward and sitting back, and forward and stepping through and back? So when we go forward and step through, we end up shifting 100% of the weight to each side. When we shift it this way, not quite 100% till we're here. We take our step, we push forward with the back leg, not 100% yet until we do that. And then it goes to the next position, and then it goes again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you take your step. So that's how we walk. It's always 0 to 100, 100 to 0. It's constant cycling of that shifting of weight. So you become more aware and sensitive to where your body is moving and how it feels to check your weight. And then you develop tremendous control of that action. So one of the things that I use as an exercise that's derived, or this walking technique is really derived from how we move our feet in relationship to the upper body. So the hand on the opposite side moves forward with the front leg. The other foot is moving, so the other hand goes up, and that's the relationship we want. And here's the center line. Now, if I go backwards, you just reverse that same concept. But let's just go forward first. 1, 2. Now, we're in the right foot position, left hand forward. We're going to take it back. This goes here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Now all the weight is on the supporting leg. So this is building coordination and balance. Okay, now we're going to try the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, now we're going to bring this foot up and then go back, up, and back, up, and back. Now keep all your weight on the supporting leg. That way you're building balance, coordination, and control of your position. But look what happens. Your body really has to become connected to this motion. And then you start to build, that relationship and the understanding. Now here, the hands go from side to side. Let's go all the way over here and then bring it in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and stop. Now we'll go this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and stop. Okay, shake that out. Hands up for deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, so that's the deep breathing exercise. We're up on our toes and exhale on the way down. Now, once we're in this position, and we just did that, we're going to hold the ball. We have one on each side. So you can see this is called reversing the ball and just flipping it over. Okay, now we're going to turn and spread the feet. So the feet are parallel now, and we're doing the same leg work, but we're not going to step through. We're just going to go forward and then sit back, hold the ball, go forward and back. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that's the cycle. It's really A, B, C, D, all the way to the forward position, all the way back. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Remember, there's 5 points that we're targeting, and then back. There's the shoulder, the hip, front leg, and the back leg, and then sitting. So it just cycles through 5 positions or 5 different motions. Okay, next we're going to do the other side. Here again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now everything moves like clockwork. It cycles through your hands, your body, and your limb is moving sequentially, and it seems so close as far as when the hands end and finish that you see the integration of the body, building this timing from 1, 2, 3, 4, and back. Okay, shake that out. Let's bring the palms here. And we're going to go like this, cloud hands. Okay, so what is cloud hands? Cloud hands is made up of these. So that's a circle. So that's this. How about this? Shoulder roll. And how about this, going backwards? So what do we have? We have a bunch of circles. This one is focused on the shoulders. This one is focused on this pattern with the elbows, folding and unfolding. When we're here, the shoulders, working the shoulder girdle is to free up this area so you avoid or take away some of the tension and stiffness in that part of the body. And when we do the leg work, we take out the tension in that part of the body, and so forth and so on. We're just kind of building off of, these simple exercises to get our body involved, okay? So now we're going to go like this. Exhale, inhale. So remember, exhale, inhale, exhale, you press back and release, press back and release. Breathe through your nose. Breathe through your nose. Inhale and exhale through the nose. Exhale in the back stretch. Exhale, inhale. And Sana, we'll do a few more. 1, 2. Okay, you see how the hand swings? Like a pendulum, like when we're walking. So the pressing is the exhalation. Inhale here, exhale here, inhale. And your body actually does compensate because we're going like this. There's a little minute compensation for going forward and backwards, so the body doesn't get disrupted. So that's kind of a control factor again. Here we're going to go deep breathing. We're going to go lift way up on the toes and down. So the spine, if it's vertical and you're stacked upright, you can go straight up and back down. If you veer off your center and you go straight up, you might feel a little, off balance. Okay, next, we're going to bring our hands, and we did this. Let's do the big circle. 1, 2, 3. So this actually loosens all of this up too. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. Okay, so that works the shoulders. It's a bigger circle than this. So this one goes as parallel in the same direction. This is going in opposite direction. So it goes to the side and then back to center. Goes to the side, back to center. If I were to do this, it would go to the side and do the center. So that's a reverse of what we did on this direction. And that just gives you an idea that patterns in space happen in different spaces and different planes of motion. So when I'm doing this, or I'm doing this, I'm going up, or I'm doing this, they're really planes of movement. Horizontal, vertical, vertical. So there's an XYZ axis, and it's a different plane of movement. And movements are defined in direction. So you can see the direction of movement. So you can see every time I change my hand, it creates a different understanding, an illusion of motion. Okay? Now, let's bring our hands down. Let's do this again. Okay, this is really the 2 circles, and we're going to do the cloud hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and then now I'm going to tie the feet into the hands in the direction. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, the weight goes all the way over. When it gets to this point, I can move this foot. It goes all the way over. When it gets to this point, I can move this foot. So when you find your balance point, that's when you can bring the foot next to the other one and then put weight on it, because I only can move the unweighted leg, because if I don't do it this way, it becomes this. So that's actually, you see the disconnect and the control of your center. When I shift like this, I'm controlling my center. I control the placement of that foot, because that's what is actually happening. So that's called wave hands like clouds, or cloud hand movements. With the footwork, you're moving to one direction. So we move in the direction with the vertical arm, and then we go to the opposite with the vertical arm. But we didn't step on this side. We only step on this side going that way. If we wanted to practice it going the opposite way, this is what we would have to do. It's just reverse all the actions. So depending on how coordinated you are, how long you've been doing this, some of those become much, much easier. So that's the cloud hand movements. And the shifting of the weight is really important, so your body becomes familiar with what it feels like to get the weight over and soften that touchdown. Okay? Now we're going to do this. Carry tiger to the mountain. So we do the lower hoop, the upper hoop, out and in and down. Okay? Lift up, out, cross, and down. So all of these positions that should be muscle memoried. That's upper hoop, stork flaps wings, cross hand position, and lower hoop. If your body recognizes those three things, low hoop, okay, upper hoop, cross hands, and down, that's carry tiger to the mountain. And it shows up in the form when we step like this and then raise the left hand for stork flaps wings. Okay, so we have this. Now we work through this. And now we're going to go to the infinity sign. We block. So it's like a conductor, moving it out, moving it in, moving it out, moving it out. You soften the movement so there's not any conflict in motion. And the body is just floating and it feels stable because you're not putting any real excessive forces into the motion. Now forming the fist is this. Okay, good. So those are the basic movements that are postures inside the form. We have movements like this, diagonal flying. We have form the fist. We have strum the lute, which is going to happen in a second. We have carry tiger to the mountain. This is carry tiger to the mountain. Then we have the infinity sign. And then we have divert, block, and punch, which is a combination of a few of those movements. Okay, next, I'm going to take us to strum the lute. Okay, separate the hands. This is strum the lute. We separate the hands. Now we're going to thumb up on the left. Palms together. Alternate the shoulders. Now we're going to go to the right. Thumbs up. Alternate the shoulders. And center. Okay, deep breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. So, all these weeks we've been working on a lot of the fundamentals and trying to get some understanding and clarity to why we do these exercises. But ultimately, we still want to understand what a posture is in Tai Chi, what a sequence is in Tai Chi, because Tai Chi is that. That's what you see more of out in the parks or out in the performances, that you see a series of movements that's a sequence and it looks graceful, it looks beautiful as a spectator, but how do you learn that, and what are the benefits? Well, the benefit is memory of a sequence, building coordination, identifying these postures so they have the manipulation of these different joints in your body to create those postures. So we have a series of postures. One of the first things that we do is actually this called preparation. Now, learning the form, you could just kind of copy along, but it doesn't really help a lot, because by just copying, you have the inability to memorize, because all you do is follow when you want someone to follow with all the time. So this is called preparation, this starting movement. Now, the footwork that we did earlier takes us into this stance, and we go to a vertical position. So this is vertical elbow, this is horizontal elbow. And we sit back and turn the foot out and then step up. If we drop the elbow, then move the hand up to the other side and go to horizontal position. We have two starting positions, one on each side, called beginning style. So when we start out the form, we have first the left beginning style. That's the neutral strum the lute. So that's one posture on the left side. When we step up, taking us to the other side, we're on the right side beginning style. Okay. So between the left and right, we have one vertical and one horizontal. But then the next movement that ties into that is called grasp the sparrow's tail. So grasp the sparrow's tail is 4 movements. You have a vertical, a horizontal, a palm down position, and a palm out position. So you have vertical, horizontal, palm down, and push out. So those 4 movements, 1, 2, 3, and 4 make up grasp the sparrow's tail. Now, we can try to just go through the motions and string it all together, but you're not going to be able to remember it. So the best thing to do when you're first learning, aside from the exercise, which helps build coordination and something that you can follow without a whole lot of stepping and moving around, we can build off some of these postures. So we identify the vertical and the horizontal as just a simple back and forth movement with the hands going from vertical to horizontal on each side, depending on how you want to connect it with the beginning style or just doing it as 2 different movements. So that completes that. Now, if we go to grasp the sparrow's tail on the right side for the sequence, you would go to vertical and horizontal. So that's 2 movements. Grasp the sparrow's tail is made up of 4 movements. So we already have the first 2. So we only have to add 2 more. So we're in the horizontal position. What's the next 2 movements? Next 2 movements is separating the hands, bring the hand toward the navel, invert the inside hand, and push forward. So your hands end up like this. So between this and this and this is grasp the sparrow's tail. So you have the vertical, the horizontal, the palms down, and the inside hand up. This is, okay, grasp the sparrow's tail. So that's the 3rd movement. So we did left and right side beginning styles. We had preparation, that was the first movement. And then we have grasp the sparrow's tail. So grasp the sparrow's tail, that are those 4 movements. Now we go to this corner, then we turn and look into that corner. We have the 2 corners, okay? So if I have this corner, my left foot is like that, pointing that corner. If I have this corner, my right foot is pointing there. So if I take this foot and step out here and then pivot on the heel, I have 1 foot pointing to each corner. That's your horse stance. And I end up in this stance with these hand positions. This is called single whip. So if I turn toward that corner and I combine the hands, this is a hooked hand position. This is an open palm position. And I spread my feet. Now you look at my feet, they're still parallel. I want to open this up and bring this across to single whip. So that's the next posture, single whip. Okay, bringing the hand into here and down and this across is holding the ball. Starting position, so this holding the ball is like beginning style to a variety of postures. So holding the ball goes into diagonal flying or part the horse's mane. So for instance, if we're in this position and I lean like this, that's diagonal flying from the hold the ball position. If I'm like this, as vertical and horizontal, that's the setup for grasp the sparrow's tail or brush knee and push as a geometry of position where you have a horizontal, a vertical, and depending on where the palms are. So you see that you have to learn arm positioning on both sides, body positioning relative to vertical, right and left, and the legs forward and back, forward and back. So the benefit of learning these positions first will give you a chance to practice them without trying to get through, 100 different movements to get through a sequence that you can barely remember. So you identify these as units. Now, if you go to our website, calvinshin.com, on the back, on the top, there's a black banner, and it says Tai Chi Paradigm on, I believe. If you click on that, there's a PDF that has names of all of these postures. And that PDF actually has the names of the postures in order. So when I start off the form and I do preparation, that's the first movement. If I adjust my feet and step up and I go forward, that's beginning style. That's the next piece of the form, which is the second movement. And then the third movement, which takes us to the right side after we make a transition or step up first, we're on the right side. So the right side takes us into beginning style right side. So left and right side become, a single unit of postures, right and left side. And then the next unit would be grasp the sparrow's tail, which is these four movements. And if you recall, it's the vertical, the horizontal, palms down, and inside amp to push forward. And then once you hook your wrists, you have your next unit, which is going to be single whip. Okay. What happens here is hold the ball, but actually holding the ball, which is this, becomes part of this, which is really diagonal flying. And then if we take a step and we move to the right side again and then go forward, that's really like beginning style. Now let's go to the shoulder width stance that we learned from the exercises. The hands just relax, and I lift the hand. Now we didn't do the exercise here, but I want to get into some of the postures so that you can get an idea that Tai Chi is really made up of these postures. So I lift my hand up and I bend from the waist and I turn and I lift. Okay, there's raising the hand. Bend from the waist, stork flaps wings. Now raise the hand, bend, stork flaps wings. Raise the hand, bend from the waist, stork flaps wings. So you can see that if you can identify that one piece, you can practice both sides if you have the ability to do that, or you can just practice one side. You can do the right side, grasp the sparrow's tail, and later on, once you kind of memorize those four basic positions, you can transfer it to the mirror image and do the left side movements, because grasp the sparrow's tail happens on the right and left side. Brush, knee, and push happens on the left and right side. Pot the horse's mane and grasp the sparrow's tail. Well, pot the horse's mane and diagonal flying has both right and left sides. So those are postures that you can learn one and then learn the other, or try to do both as a routine. Now, if you're doing silk reeling, which is this, that covers pot the horse's mane, diagonal flying pretty much as a drill, and we're doing right and left side there. So you can see a lot of the things that we've already gone through, movements that you already should be familiar with. Carry tiger to a mountain is a transition. Cross hand position is one. Infinity sign, where you divert and block, is one. And then forming the fist and punching is another one. So there's so many things that you've already been exposed to that not all of it has been digested. It's just kind of recognizing it. Because recognize is really visual recognition. You see it and you say, oh, I've seen that before. I've seen it. I know that. So those are things that, those are reference points that kind of give you an idea of what we're building on. So then we did the cloud hands and we moved from side to side, right? And we shifted like this, and we shifted like this. So that's sort of building some agility of footwork, slowly moving across to find your center. Okay. So while we did a series of movements like that, let's go to this position again. We have the upper hoop in the cross hand position. This is carry tiger to the mountain. Really, the geometry position is one big hoop up on top, a cross hand movement here, and down. We lift up, we open it up, we cross in, and then here. So that's called carry tiger to the mountain, and this is the infinity sign. Just waving your hand like a conductor. It goes out, it goes in, it goes out, it goes in, it goes out, and it goes in. Okay, now we're going to lower it so our arms are pretty much parallel to the floor. And you form the fist and you punch. Let's do about 5 of these. 3, 2, 3, 4. Palm up, fingers curl, and 5. So that's form the fist. A combination of these movements become a posture, it becomes a transition, and you build off of that. So infinity sign and punch creates divert, block, and punch. But a lot of that's going to be too much for one session. But the important thing is we find the vertical triangle and we have one on each side. When the left foot is forward, you have the vertical hand and the horizontal elbow. If we switch to the other side without doing the transition with the elbows, we have the vertical and the horizontal. We have the vertical and the horizontal. Okay? Now, from here, keeping the same footwork, let's go to vertical and horizontal again, and then bring the hands down and push forward. So the only thing you're doing is pivoting from here to here to here to here. So the only thing you're doing is turning your palm up, turning your palm down, turning your palm up, turning your palm down. So when the hands are here, 2 palm down, 1 palm up. 2 palms down, 1 palms up. So here, press forward, 2 palms down, 1 palm up, and that's the inside hand. Okay, so that's grasp the sparrow's tail, right side, because it's the right foot. When we're in the 45-degree corner and we hook and open, that's single whip. You bring it from here to here, so we have 2 corners, 2 feet pointing in the corner, single whip is that. This is the hook hand. You roll your wrist forward and let your index finger and your thumb merge. Keep the 3 little fingers along the side touching the meaty part of your thumb. So the meaty part of your thumb is like the drumstick, and it's kind of over here, and we hook. So that's your hooked hand. This is your open palm hand, and that's single whip. When I go like this, that's just the setup to hold the ball, so that when I go like this and shift, there's my diagonal slant. There's the diagonal flying. When I move the foot in back to the right side position, I'm going to go right vertical, right horizontal, step up, and I'm going to lift the hand. So this is about forehead height. I bend from the waist, I turn, bring the other hand up as a lift of the body, and I'm at stork flaps wings. Okay, so that's the first section of the form. The next section has brush knee and some of the other things. So next class, or next Tuesday, I'll go over the next section of the form a bit, and still continue to do some of the finishing of the warm-ups that we didn't complete today. So there's a lot of information there. You just have to revisit those videos at any time. They're on there 24/7. You can go to YouTube, calvinchin.com. You can subscribe and give us a thumbs up. That helps our ratings. But that's the best way to access it. And once you've accessed it, it's memorized in your computer, or even YouTube knows that you're doing this often. So the subscription thing, you don't have to pay to be part of that subscription thing. It's just logging in and say that you're watching this. Because a subscription, sometimes people think, oh, I don't want a subscription because then I don't have to pay for it, end up paying for it. Although YouTube does have a subscription, but that's to their overall website, so that it takes out some of maybe the commercials or whatever, but you don't have to subscribe to that. And if you do subscribe to that, I think it's like $12. I don't know, it might be $12 a year. I'm not even sure. For the YouTube subscription, is it $12 a year or a month? Yeah, so the subscription to YouTube, yeah. Yeah, so you don't need a YouTube subscription to subscribe to what we're offering on YouTube. The subscribe button doesn't mean subscribe to YouTube. But if you choose to, you can always subscribe to YouTube and get a ton of other stuff that they might be offering. But anyways, that's a good way to go, and it's always there. You can actually access it from your phone, your laptop, your iPad. It's all there. It's accessible. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. If it's about time, Lucian, right? Okay, so if you have any questions, if I'm moving too fast, if you have questions, you can always chat, or you can even, on YouTube, you can actually ask some questions, or email is one way you can do it. We also have info@calvinchin.com, or you can go Lucien, Lucien, @calvinchin.com, and he can always help you out if it's a technical issue on the YouTube and so forth. And next Thursday, actually at 1 o'clock, we have a Parkinson's Foundation Zoom conference with many of with anyone, I think, that's part of the foundation. So yeah.
There's a link with the Zoom
Yeah.
info in it there. You
So
can also find that link at the Parkinson's Foundation's page as well.
okay, so you can find Think Thursdays.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's called Think Thursdays, or memorize the time that it's 1 o'clock next Thursday, May 28th. You can go to the Parkinson's Foundation website, or you can go to our website, look for that link, click on it, and you'll be able to access the Zoom conferencing. So I'm not sure if you've done a lot with Zoom. We're not the host. The Parkinson's Foundation is the host. So we'll be part of that. I'm going to do a presentation on the benefits of the Tai Chi Paradigm and Parkinson's. And also, we're going to have a Q&A. It's going to be 1 hour long. We're going to do some hands-on thing. And it's going to be the Zoom conference. So remember, if you didn't watch it this morning live and you see it, remember, May 28th, if you access that, that's when it's going to happen. And that's going to be from 1 to 2. So the 12:30 Parkinson's class will not be held. What we're going to do, we're not going to do the live class next Thursday. We're going to be building, and then hopefully you'll have time to come in at 1 and stay till 2 to do that Zoom meetup. So hope this was helpful. I'll see you next time. I'll see you Tuesday before I see you at that Zoom conference.